Greetings and welcome to my Steam Deck review video. To start things off, I want to first explain what this product really is so that I can get everyone on the same page. Despite the Steam Deck being advertised as a really lightweight and portable console, I would rather call it one, if not the best mini PCs that you can get right now. With its amazing APU made in partnership with AMD, the performance is really outstanding when compared to some kind of laptop or mini PC. In fact, if you want to get a gaming PC that outperforms the Steam Deck, you'd have to pay at least $700 due to the rising GPU prices. To get directly to some benchmarks, I was able to achieve a stable 30 FPS at the native resolution of the Steam Deck with mid to high settings on Cyberpunk. Can you believe that? It has such a small factor and yet it is able to run a AAA title with some playable frames. In fact, when you try to load up a game like Apex Legends, you can still average around 60 to 70 FPS on low settings, which might not seem that great when compared to some of the desktop options out there, but please consider that the integrated GPU on a 13th gen i9 only averages 50 FPS on a public game at 720p. But where this console really shines is in both emulation and arcade games. I'm not talking about Wii or perhaps PS1 emulation, but rather about Switch emulation, where these can often outperform the real console where these games are supposed to be played on. Of course, if you buy such console, you'll not be able to detach the controllers, thus you won't be able to connect it to the TV like the real Switch, but if you only wish to play some of the latest Nintendo titles on the go, you could absolutely do that. But what if someone wanted to connect a monitor, mouse and keyboard to the console and just straight up use it as a normal PC to play games? Well, it kinda works. To be clear, this is just a brief touch about this topic because I have tried to use the deck as my only PC for a week. Thus, a video about that topic is specifically going to come out in the future, so subscribe if you do not want to miss that. I have to start my explanation by giving props to Steam for including a full-on desktop experience with Arch Linux installed. Thus, you can completely use this PC for office tasks and for really basic photo and video editing. Talking about Linux, I should also mention that most of the games that run on Windows can also run on the Steam Deck with a compatibility layer based on Wine, called Proton. This is enabled by default for Windows games that you download through Steam, but in case you want to add a game or emulator on your own, you'll have to do that manually. Not that it's hard, but I just wanted to point that out. Now, generally speaking, playing games in the normal mode gives you some performance increases over the desktop mode, which is to be expected due to many people not even entering the desktop mode once. This, however, results in a problem: the unoptimized support for mouse and keyboard for the gaming mode. To be fair, I don't expect much, but when I click Alt F4 to quit from a game, it just quits out the whole OS and leaves a terminal window of crap, which is really not cool. I would expect just some kind of small control option for my peripherals, like solving the issue mentioned above, or perhaps an option to open the menu without needing to press the button on the Steam Deck. Again, do not get me wrong here, everything works fine in the desktop mode since it's a full-on Linux install, but when using that, you leave some performance on the table, and if you're a tech-savvy person, this could bother you, especially if you have a 1080p monitor connected. Aside from that, the gaming performance is okay. If you come from a full-on desktop PC with a dedicated graphics, you'll start complaining about the really bad performance, but in fact, it's perfectly in line with low-end gaming laptops with a basic graphics card. Thus, you'll be able to enjoy most of the games at playable frame rates. Just know that you should have a 1080p monitor or lower, otherwise you'll probably have to scale the resolution down to play games. Games like Minecraft run like a charm with an average of 300 FPS at 1080p, so I would say that if you can afford to pay $500 on this, but you want to seldomly edit some documents or even play some games with a mouse and keyboard, it could also be the right choice for you. But do I have real complaints about this console? Well, kind of. The left trigger was a bit broken for my specific model, but I'm sure you can fix that just by contacting Steam and doing an RMA. Another complaint could be the loud fan noise, which can distract your gaming experience when trying to play some AAA titles like Cyberpunk. Though, if you're going to use this console outside, like you're intended to, specifically while having some headphones on, you will not be able to notice it. The charger does not have a detachable cord, at least in Europe, so that's a bummer that shouldn't have been there in the first place. Playing games like Cyberpunk will make your battery last for about 3 hours, while easy to handle games will give you at least 5 hours of gameplay time. That's of course understandable due to the really small battery and the performance that the little console has to output. The base size could be better too. I mean, it's nothing really bothering, but I can confidently say that the Switch OLED looks better just for this little touch. Well, everything else that I haven't mentioned is really great. Speakers are good, haptics are really amazing, buttons feel really good, and the UI of the gaming mode looks really good when you use it as expected with your Steam Deck and without any kind of monitor. I should praise the delivery times, which were really good considering that Steam is not really concentrating itself on hardware but rather on software. That's the ultimate question: is this console worth it? I would say that it very much is, but who would I recommend this console to? Well, to any gamer that can afford to pay $500 for a console, to MacBook users who do not have a gaming PC but would still like to enjoy the pleasure of gaming both on the go and at home, and finally to people that intend to use the Steam Deck as their own machine, because as I said, if you just want to edit some documents while you're at home, these things work perfectly. Well, which configuration would I suggest? If you want to use this device as your personal and only machine, I would strongly recommend you get the 256 gig model, but for everyone else, I would simply suggest the base 64 gigs model. Despite of the specs difference, everyone should buy an SD card to store games, since they are cheaper than SSD upgrades themselves. At the end of the day, if you want more storage, you can upgrade that yourself, even though it will void your warranty. So if you change your mind for some reason, you are still not screwed. Well, I think that covers everything that has to be said about the Steam Deck, so let me know if you liked the video by subscribing and leaving a comment, and see you in the next one.